you are my phoenix of the ashes in
Oh,
Detroit.
my goodness.
No, you lost your job back in the financial crisis. When was that? 2009, 2010, or 2009?
2008.
Eight. Right,
Actually, yeah,
right, right,
2008.
yeah, right at the beginning. I mean,
Yep.
Detroit was struck really hard. It went bankrupt as a city, and you lost your job. And just tell the story before, what happened.
Sure. So I was in the financial industry, specifically mortgages, and I've worked, all across the servicing aspect. Um, because I guess initially it was just a job, but then I found out I could help people and was helping people, so I uh, kind of, you know, that began my good feeling for working with people, helping people out.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I moved around all aspects of servicing and doing so for 20 years. I was doing in the mortgage banking industry for
Oh, you were for 2 decades?
for
Wow.
20 years. Yep.
And then you ended up doing bad stuff,
Yeah.
more or less. I mean, when the bubble exploded, I guess it turned upside down with your kind of job. It was no longer service, but telling
It,
people to leave their houses.
it completely did. Absolutely. And, with the bust that ensued, there was servicing kind of dwindled because there were no new loans to be acquired or to be worked. So then I was laid off. I had a few temporary positions off and on, but there was nothing steady.
And nothing
Um,
satisfying.
yeah, by that time, satisfaction was not being gained or received because everybody was hurting and dealing with the people. I took on some of that emotion and going through the pain, also feeling their pain as well.
Were
So
you frustrated plus hurt? I mean, yourself? Were you feeling depressed back then?
absolutely, it really put a toll on me because the tail end of my servicing work was doing the not so fun job of the foreclosures and the home inspection aspects and doing a little quality control with the underwriters. So I got to see all aspects of how people were struggling and hurting and
Yeah.
and
And tell us what you're doing now.
so
Phoenix.
after I kind of relinquished the banking industry side of my profession, I was working side jobs here and there, and those were dwindling because the economy just didn't have very many people doing a lot of funding. So um, I was just sitting at home, not feeling very good about my situation and myself. And I noticed a group of kids just riding by, having a good time in my neighborhood
On their
and
bikes.
on their bikes. And, it just hit me like, what am I doing just sitting here sulking and, not doing anything about it? And those kids kind of inspired me to jump on the bike. And I just started riding my bike. I started just, out of shape, obviously. Just did a few miles around the neighborhood. I thought it was enlightening. I thought it was pretty fun at the moment. It gave me something to do, and I felt better just doing something and not just sitting on
Mhm.
the sofa. So day after day, the rides just got longer. I I left the neighborhood. I started exploring other areas, um, and soon after, I was came about my. I started riding all the way to my old neighborhood as a child. there's a large park, 340 some acre park, just on the northwest side of the city, which is where I grew up, called Palmer Park.
Palmer.
And it was dedicated to the city years ago by Senator Palmer, who was a Michigan senator. But during that particular time, you know, the city had no money, you know, the financial industry crashed, and city services were beginning to just shut down because there was no budget to maintain them. And there was all the parks were on that list of not being able to be serviced by the city.
So it was just wild country.
It became that, yeah, and
Mhm.
with no regulation and no patrol, you know, there was a lot of activity that was illicit, you know, drug abuse,
Yes.
prostitution. There was just a hangout for bad things to happen.
Okay.
But it still had some amenities to the park, like it still had tennis courts. There still was a nature trail throughout the forest we have on the property. And there was one woman, Leanne. She's a tennis enthusiast, and she would play tennis there throughout this time period.
Like in the middle of the drug abuse and the prostitutes standing around the gates, and she
She
was
was still out there playing tennis, and she was not going to let it just fall apart, you know, because you know she lived just adjacent to the neighborhood at the time, and
okay.
she took it upon herself to stand up and tell the city, you know, this is, you know, if you don't want to do something with this park, I am.
Okay.
And at that point, she was the spark that initiated a group of people who live in the surrounding neighborhoods or used to live around the neighborhoods.
Like you.
And eventually it became a nonprofit called the People of Palmer Park. We conceptualized an idea that, you know, they're here because nobody else is.
Mm.
So we thought of collectively, well, let's bring activities back to this park. And if we bring activities to the park, we bring people to the park, they will go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she started with tennis. There was yoga that came in. There was a walking group, and I started a bike ride.
Yeah.
Right out the park. Actually, probably came around the same time I started doing tours. Is Slow Roll.
Slow Roll, yes.
Slow Roll was started by two friends who, you know, kind of the same feeling as that they were, you know, everything around us has been so depressed, and they were kind of falling out of love for the city, and they just wanted to get out and enjoy their friends and explore by bike. Yeah, right now
it's still rolling. It's still slow rolling. And how many people are joining now?
We've had guesstimates of up to 5,000 to 6,000 people.
This is so crazy.
So falling back slightly to my wheelhouse start, there was a gentleman there, one of the mechanics, who worked there part-time on the weekend, but his full-time job was construction and interior rehab specifically. And we got to talking, and he was telling me, because he knew I was looking for jobs, so I was asking everybody I knew, if you know anything going on, just let me know. I want something that's full-time. So he told me about this facility he was rehabbing that was in the process of becoming a bicycle factory. My eyes just lit up. I mean, by this time, I was doing volunteer work for Palmer Park.
Yeah.
I was working for Wheelhouse. slow roll was in full effect. So it, cycling was just something that really excited me. So I couldn't think of anything better
Yeah,
than
sure.
to start manufacturing and building bikes.
Yeah.
And that's when he gave me the address. I showed up that next Monday morning, talked to the foreman in charge, and by that Tuesday, I was there working. They were
So you
just
went there on
ramping
Monday,
up.
and on Tuesday you started working.
Started working. They were just ramping up and assembling their prototypes. Uh, I'm so grateful for the bicycle in general because it's opened up my eyes and so many doors for me. Just my one effort of volunteering to promote cycling around the park and around the surrounding neighborhoods, it spawned actually 2 more jobs.
How's life now today in Detroit?
Well, it's definitely reminiscent of 2008. Where um, it really pulls at your fortitude on what is going on now and what's the future like. It's almost we know we're going to get through it, but how we're going to get through it is always the question.
So the sense of uncertainty is something that you remember from back in the days in 2008?
It's very familiar, yes.
Okay.
Detroit Bikes was overwhelmed, which is a good thing, of bicycle orders.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to go back to the factory.
Now,
And
recently?
yes, this
Days?
past week and a half or so.
Right.
Still maintaining social distancing for sure.
But building.
But we got back to building bikes because
Great.
people see that as a need and a
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And I think if we all, tying it to cycling, if we all find something we're interested in, envelop ourselves with that interest, and then find some way to help others experience the same feeling we get from that special interest, it will help people feel a lot better as a whole. It'll help within yourself feel better that, you're making a difference.